Welcome to Small Medium at Large, the podcast where we dive deep into life's biggest questions with a little help from Spirit. Through heartfelt conversations, Spirit-led guidance, and powerful guest interviews, my hope is to inspire you to fill your cup, shine your light, and create a little more heaven on earth. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let's begin. Welcome back to Small Medium at Large. In order to ascend, we must first descend. This is all about the role of shadow work, ego death, and ascension symptoms in our spiritual evolution. And so we're going to do a deep dive into all of this. And I do mean deep. Okay. We're going to talk about something most people don't put on their vision boards. But honestly, it's one of the most vital parts of the spiritual journey, in my opinion. And so here it is. In order to ascend, we must first descend. I know it's not the sexy high vibe message that we want to hear, but it's the real one. Okay. And if you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or like, why does life feel so intense right now, even though I'm doing all the right things spiritually? Well, this episode is for you. Because true ascension, the kind that elevates your soul, requires us to go inward first. It asks us to face the hidden parts of ourselves, the wounded parts, and to shed the layers of ego, and to make peace with the past, and to allow the old to fall away so that the light can rise. And so today we're going to talk about shadow work and ego death and this wild thing called Ascension syndrome. And most importantly, how to support yourself through all of it with love, trust, faith, and grace. So let's get into it. So the first part of this is the descent being sacred, okay? There's this myth in spiritual spaces that the journey is always upward, higher frequency, more light, good vibes only, right? But in truth, ascension is a spiral, and that spiral always dips down before it rises up. You know, someone once taught me ascension isn't necessarily up, it's out. And so it's expansion, I guess we could say. And this is universal. It's not a personal failure when, you have to dip down. It's a sacred phase of our evolution. And to access the light, we must first walk through our shadows. Because those shadows, they're not our enemies. They're our invitations, okay? And in those shadows is information, okay? And so what is the shadow? Well, the shadow that everyone seems to be talking about lately is Carl Jung, who described it as the disowned parts of ourselves. So it's the pieces that we've pushed down our way because they felt too painful, too shameful, or just too much, to be honest. And the shadow holds, repressed emotions like rage, jealousy, and fear. It holds old trauma and pain, what we like to call, PTSD, limiting beliefs like I'm not enough, or I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy. But here's the most powerful part. Shadow work isn't about getting rid of these parts, okay? It's about bringing them into the light. It's about integrating them and loving them back into wholeness. Because when we don't do that, our shadow doesn't go away. It just runs the show from the back seat, right? It's that unconscious, record or tape that's kind of running everything and the lens through which we see our world. And so why now? Why is it surfacing now? Why does it feel like everything is bubbling to the surface? I know I hear that a lot from clients lately. And really, it's because the planet is shifting. We're collectively moving from a 3D fear-based reality into a 5D heart-based one. And in 5D, we live from unity and compassion and love. But we can't carry the density of the 3D world with us. And so the shadow rises. Okay, it's rising to the surface. personally and collectively, not to punish us, but to be healed and to be released. There's a cost of ignoring the shadow. I know there's a lot of unconscious people and a lot of people who are day after day choosing not to do the work and not to look at and heal their shadow. Okay. And that's free will choice. However, when we avoid the descent, okay, when we ignore the shadow, it weighs us down. That unprocessed pain becomes energetic dead weight, and it lowers our frequency. Okay. And in the universe of vibration and resonance, we attract what we are a match to, right? It's the whole idea. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So if we want to manifest differently, we want to co-create our heaven on earth and our best lives, we need to become different. Not perfect, but whole, honest, authentic. And so, shadow work is soul work. It's seeing all the parts of ourselves, the light and the dark, and saying, you belong, okay? You're seeing it with discernment, but not judgment. You're leaning into it. You're embracing it. You're not resisting it or pushing it down. And so it's inviting awareness to what's been unconscious. It's choosing love over shame. No more stuffing it and moving into these shame cycles that I know so many of my clients have gone through, where they just start, spinning out because they're hitting rock bottom because it's not sustainable to stuff and repress and suppress all of those lower vibrational emotions like shame and guilt and victimhood. And so it's about reclaiming the power that we gave away in moments of pain. And the more we integrate, okay, the higher we rise. It really is worth it, my friends, because that's the whole point of being here in Earth School. It's, we came here to tackle the assignments, but there's a way to do it with grace, ease, joy, and peace, and not do it in the old 3D way, which was really, pain, suffering, and struggle, the hard way. There's a way to do it and make it a more enjoyable process. And so what is Ascension really? Okay. This Ascension process that I'm sure you've heard a lot about the last few years, yes, it really is a thing. Okay. It's the removing from an old earth and an old energy and old paradigm to a new earth, which is more in alignment and mirrors more of heaven from what Spirit has told me. Ascension, it's not floating off into the ethers or bypassing reality. What it is, it's expansion of consciousness, of love, of light, of perspective. But with expansion comes pressure, right? So the body starts to feel it. The emotions get stirred up. The soul starts upgrading, and that's what we call Ascension syndrome. And so if you've been feeling all sorts of things, symptoms like nausea, dizziness, fatigue, mood swings, or emotional waves, relationship shifts, heightened sensitivity, or even strange dreams, okay? Those are just to name a few. That's all part of it. And I could go on, but, when you cannot diagnose it, and you just can't put your finger on it, it's highly probable that you could call it Ascension symptoms if you are in a spiritual growth period and you know it, okay? And so it's your nervous system adjusting to holding more light. So as you choose to awaken and to expand your vessel to hold more light, it's going to bring up all the weak links and all the things that are not serving you anymore. And you can see it as a gift. It's all surfacing to be released so that you become lighter and brighter and vibrating higher, and so that you can hold more of these downloads of these light codes that are available to us. What if the guidance, peace, and clarity you're searching for could be found within? Through my guided meditation offerings, you'll receive powerful spiritual tools to reconnect with your soul, your team spirit, and the divine support that is always around you. Whether you're moving through grief, navigating change, or simply craving a moment of grounded clarity, these meditations are designed to lift you up and guide you home to yourself. Visit RebeccaRosen.com to explore the full library and receive a free meditation when you join the email list. And so the key here really is don't freak out. Just remember, you are not broken. You are in a process of becoming, right? You're becoming more whole and more in alignment with your authentic soul self. And so sometimes this process gets really intense and we enter what a lot of people call the dark night of the soul or an ego death, okay? I happened to go through this in my 20s. This is how it launched my entire journey in the spiritual world, where I was going through my own dark night of the soul. And it was called the Night Prowler. And I'm not going to revisit the story because I'm sure many of you listening have already heard this, but it is in my book, Spirited. But for me, that was literal waking up and sleep eating. And that was a nightmare in and of itself. But that's when it forced me to pray. And that was an invitation that opened a doorway to the other side and to my spirit guides and my grandmother Babe, who started to visit me through my journaling, which became automatic writing, which became an 18-month journey of healing, going through an ego death. So, what is this? This can feel like a spiritual void, a total collapse of what you thought you knew. And it can lead to that ego death, which is the unraveling of identities, attachments, roles, and masks that you used to wear. And an ego death really does feel like a real death. Sometimes it's really hard to differentiate the difference between a real death and the ego death because it's essentially the same thing. We're constantly going through death and rebirth processes throughout any one lifetime. But this is a very intense and profound experience for anybody who's gone through it. You know what I'm talking about. And it can feel very scary. For some, it even triggers suicidal ideation or feelings. Not because they want to die, but because the ego is terrified of being dismantled. It doesn't know another way. And it's losing its power and control. And so it really can feel like a death. And so if this resonates for you, please hear this. It's not your soul that wants to leave, okay? It's your ego that's afraid to let go. And so there is a big difference. You are not alone. Support is essential when you're going through this. Now, what I like to say is your team spirit, right? Divine intervention and support is always available, and you want to be in constant prayer and communion with the divine, with source. But also in this world, maybe through a professional, a therapist. Therapy can be very helpful. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's a community where you have like-minded souls that you're connecting with that are helping you navigate your way. It could be spiritual mentorship. You have to decide what type of support you need, but then be open and willing to receive it. This is not a time to, withdraw. If you are experiencing any suicidal ideation, I highly, highly encourage you, pray and ask for help and then, let someone know, reach out. The one thing I hear from the other side more than anything by the ones who have died by suicide is that they wished they would have made more of an effort to get the help, receive the help that was available, that they were blind to because they were in such a disconnected state. They couldn't sense it, see it, feel it. And so supporting yourself through it. So what do you do when everything feels upside down? Here's what's helped me and many, many, many clients. Grounding daily, okay? You got to figure out what grounding means for you. For me, literally putting my feet barefoot on the earth, on the grass, for 10 to 20 minutes really makes a huge difference. You're connecting with the frequency of Mother Earth. You're releasing all, negative energy, toxins from your system. You're calming, you're regulating your nervous system. Okay, grounding could be moving, meditation, walking, running, hiking, biking, whatever that looks like for you. Grounding could be eating real food, healthy, high vibrational foods and beverages, adequate rest, getting the sleep you need, hydration, water. Water, we're 70 to 80% water, our bodies are. And so, water moves energy. You want that hydration and drinking tons of water to flush out anything that might be coming up for you, anything that needs to be flushed out. Breathing, breathing is huge. It opens up doorways to a higher consciousness, to your higher self, to your team spirit. It calms your nervous system. So figure out some breath work. You can do simple box breathing where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, release for 4, and you repeat the cycle. Another thing is tapping or emotional freedom technique, EFT. Tapping is an amazing tool for moving stuck emotions. I have this in my book, What's Your Heaven? I give a guide on how to do tapping. I have a whole method. It's called Change It, Run It, Tap It. And the tap it is what I'm talking about now. Affirmations, the change it part is using affirmations. So if you're struggling with negative thinking, false beliefs, you want to flip it and affirm the positive. But affirmations alone don't always work. You have to integrate it into your being. So that's where I found the combination of tapping along with affirmations is really powerful. And then in addition, running it is with, visualizing color, using color and breath and visualizing those light frequencies, recalibrating, healing your body, mind, body, and spirit. And so again, if you're interested in any of that, check out What's Your Heaven. But some other things you can do, your affirmations, reaffirm what is true. I am safe. All is well, even if it doesn't feel well. But just remember, this is one big illusion that we are in. So I am safe, I am secure, all is well. I am becoming. Visualization or meditation, when you imagine calling in the light and allow it to flow through your body, every chakra, every layer and level of your being, your aura, this can really shift your energy. And when you combine that with the colors, which I mentioned, it's a powerful process and practice that really does recalibrate and ground you. And then I would say the final thing is play. When we play, we naturally raise our vibration. And laughter, levity, anything that inspires joy, creativity, music, nature, anything, being of service, hobbies, whatever you consider play. Some people travel, but to try and incorporate more of that on a daily basis. Here's where I'll leave you today. You cannot ascend without first descending, right? And so the shadow surfacing, it's not failure, my friends. It's necessary and it's grace. Okay? The ego unraveling, it's not death, it's rebirth. And I think many, many people, myself included, have gone through or are currently going through. It's like going from the caterpillar to the butterfly. And there's that chrysalis stage. And before you can become the butterfly, you have to go through the part that we call it's kind of mucky and it's messy and it's not pretty. It's not fun, but it's worth it because you will emerge as this beautiful, expanded version of yourself, the butterfly. And so the intensity you're feeling, that's your soul stretching wide enough to hold more of your true self. Okay? So be gentle with yourself, be real, and stay connected. Okay? You are not alone on this path. And every time you choose love over fear, light over shadow, curiosity over judgment, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing everyone around you. Okay? Your ancestral line, and you're healing humanity. So I would encourage you, keep going, keep growing, and trust. You're becoming everything that you were born to be. Okay? This is your evolving and ascending into your highest 5D timeline. That's a part of your soul contract. And so find your tools, find your people, okay? Connect to your team spirit And just remember, this too shall pass. And I hope that you find me on the next episode as we continue the journey of self-care. As always, I am wishing you brightest blessings and all love. Thank you for listening to Small Medium at Large. If this episode inspired you, please follow the show and leave a review. It truly helps us reach more people who need these messages. For more resources and upcoming events, visit RebeccaRosen.com and connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at Medium Rebecca Rosen.